Robert Tiffin joins the show to discuss his takeaways from the prospect games over the weekend, some storylines for training camp, and the futures of Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson. That's all next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $3 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And it's my pleasure to introduce Robert Tiffin to the show for the first time, at least since I've taken over Locked On Stars. I feel like this has been a long time coming. I finally gained the courage enough to ask Robert to join the show. So thank you so much, sir. How are you doing so far this week?
Good, Joey. Good to talk to you. It's been fun. Hockey's back. Got to see a couple games over the weekend. And, you know, anytime you get to watch hockey in Texas, it's a good time. So I'm glad we're finally starting back up.
Absolutely. What was your initial takeaways just from the Comerica Center, the experience of the prospect games? It's just exciting to have hockey back, of course. And they had a game to forget on Friday night, but there was some fun hockey on Saturday going back and forth.
Yeah, the two games were good. I think my first takeaway from the first game was that fans were really ready to have hockey back in Texas too. It was pretty packed. About 3,000 fans attended that first game. Again, this is a prospect tournament. You know, most of these names in the roster, I can't imagine your average, DFW, just kind of casual sports fan has ever heard of. But they came out and to watch the games, and Stars were, giving away tickets for free too, which I'm sure helped. But it was a good time. There's no secret. Everyone, that's written about this, including myself, has been pretty open that Detroit had the better and deeper prospect group. That's how it should work when one team has missed the playoffs for 9 straight seasons and the other team has been to the Western Conference Final 3 years in a row, continually, making trades at the deadline, sending away draft picks and even young players like Logan Sankoven and stuff like that to get that extra piece at the deadline, even if, they don't end up re-signing. So that first game, like you said, went exactly kind of as you would expect, with 1 or 2 kind of consolation goals for the Stars later on, a 6-2 loss. But that second game on Sunday, especially for a head coach, Toby Peterson, who I think might have been in some ways my biggest takeaway, is he's a new head coach of the Texas Stars. Mm-hmm. So this is really his first chance to get reps behind a bench at this level. And I thought in that second game, the way the Stars kind of weathered Detroit scoring 4 straight goals and then actually made a really good comeback to win the game 6-5 in the third period. That was a pretty big statement to me. So I have to think that's some good energy for Peterson going into camp and then shortly after that to Texas Stars camp down in Cedar Park. So, there are a couple of players too, of course, we could talk about. But for me, that was kind of the first thing. It was good to see a new head coach kind of get that win, especially against a good team.
Yeah, he's going to have big shoes to fill now that Neil Graham is not there. But yeah, a couple of guys that maybe stood out to you, at least from my perspective. I only got a chance to watch the Saturday game, or maybe it was the Sunday game 2. But Trey Taylor, that's a guy that's at least made me perk up a bit. And I don't want to project too far, but I feel like there's a chance for him to get some NHL time at some points. I thought he was good. And then you just wrote a piece on Stars Thoughts. For those of you that don't go to Stars Thoughts, be able to subscribe to that. Robert does great work there. But Artem Schlane, and you wrote a fun article about him just recently. So you could expand on those two guys.
Yeah, Schlane's story is interesting. One thing about going to this prospect camp, even if you're kind of looking at which guys, to keep an eye on, I mentioned 3 in a piece before the weekend that I was hoping to see pop at least a little bit. Trey Taylor is one of those 3, and I would say he's probably the only one of those 3 that did. The other 2, Emil Hemming and Cameron Schmidt. Hemming, of course, is a first-round pick. 2 years ago now, 2 drafts ago at least, and Cameron Schmidt was the Stars' highest pick, but a third-round pick in the most recent draft. So both of them had a few moments. It's not like they were actively bad or anything in the game. I don't think it, massively increased their stock, but for my money, it didn't really decrease it either. But they didn't pop, and those were two of those three biggest names that didn't really have big moments. But Trey Taylor, as you say, I think we're already at a point after the Texas Stars playoff run in the spring where Taylor was a big part of it. But even more so, I think this coming year, we're going to be talking about how Scott White managed to convince this college free agent to come and sign with Texas, because he looks like he's going to be a really pivotal piece for Texas this year. And, who knows who his future will be beyond that, but he's already showing really good things.
You mentioned Toby Peterson, and look, I know you're not around him all the time, but maybe some of the limited time you had over the weekend. What do you think he brings behind the bench? What do you think he's going to do for Texas, for a team that has just seemed to be successful? No matter how many new guys they bring in, they have veterans, they have young guys, and of course, it's always hard to kind of marry the two of winning and developing good talent. But what do you think Toby Peterson is bringing? Maybe what do you think Jim Nill and the office staff saw in him?
Yeah, the word you'll hear a lot is cerebral when people talk about Peterson. He was a skills coach in Colorado, as a lot of people know. So digging into some of those finer details and everything like that. He was also the person, he mentioned this actually after the game on Sunday night. He sometimes would be someone who would be drawing up like a 6-on-5 play just to have it ready in case you got a chance or you needed to run a 6-on-5 play. That's something that Peterson has done in the past. And it makes sense the more you kind of talk to him and listen to him, the way he thinks about the game in little details. He even mentioned that again, this is a prospect tournament, players coming from all over the place, a lot of whom have never played together before, going up against a completely different. I mean, these games usually are chaos in a lot of ways. And I'd say these two games, 6-2 and 6-5, that's pretty good chaos right there. But he made adjustments. He even said so, made some adjustments to their breakouts and a couple other things that I think were pretty apparent in game two. You expected a response. The Stars, that group, again, maybe the game doesn't quote unquote matter, but it matters to those players. And it matters to that coach too. And Peterson, coaching his first games as a new head coach for the Texas Stars in any capacity. And those adjustments, I think, were pretty apparent. They were getting a lot better transition play up the ice. They had the puck a lot more, and they weren't allowing as many high-grade chances, which I think, aside from the power play, 3 of the 5 goals Detroit scored were power play goals. So they did get into a lot of penalty trouble, but that was also part of an emphasis from Peterson that I think sounds similar to what Glenn Golitzen said, too, about making them pay the price for being in their zone. He used a phrase, I'm going to butcher it if I try to paraphrase it, but essentially said we can't let him get away with dancing around the puck in our zone as they maybe did a little bit on Saturdays. And the Stars came out hitting, throwing the body. Justin Ertl got mixed up with a player pretty good. So I think that's a good sign. If you assume that's going to be a similar point of emphasis for the Dallas team going into the season under Gulutzan, then I think we saw some encouraging signs of that. The last adjustment too that I noticed was they changed the top defense pairing. Niilo-Pekka Muhonen, a recent draft pick, was on that top pairing with Trey Taylor. They changed that going into Sunday. They moved Tristan Bertucci up who's been playing in Barrie in the OHL with Emil Hemming actually for the Barrie Colts, and they moved Tristan Bertucci up to play with Taylor, and that pairing was dynamite for the Dallas group. So a couple little things, but they had a big impact.
Yeah, I imagine it's a lot of chaos for Peterson and that staff, as you mentioned, just kind of throwing some guys together. I mentioned after game 2 specifically with being a goaltender, it's got to be tough. There's just not a lot of great defensive zone structure in front of you, and Tiffin in that game 2 faced a lot of high quality chances, but he did all right. But that's great stuff. Appreciate some of your insight from the prospects games. And now I want to chat with you a bit about your storylines for training camp for the Dallas Stars, and we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. And you can use the code LOCKEDONNHL. Okay, training camp officially starts tomorrow, at least when this is being uploaded on a Wednesday. And yesterday, I put out an episode just going through some of my big storylines, but I'm curious to hear some of yours. I guess I'll pick the low-hanging fruit right off the hop and ask you about Gulutzan a bit. And I know you've done some pieces with Lane Nazardine and stuff. And from my perspective, at least, it feels like this staff could be maybe very collaborative or maybe more open than it had been in years past. And maybe that's an unfair criticism of DeBoer. Look, he was really good and really successful here with Steve Spott and Nazardine, but at least Golitzen and what he said, it feels like it's going to be a collaborative process with Nazardine along with Neil Graham. So how do you view that? And what do you think Golitzen is going to bring to the table? Can he be the difference and put the Stars over the hump?
That is the big question. You'll hear all different people who have opinions about what type of coach or what type of captain or what type of team or play style or forecheck or goaltender even, what type of blank you need to win a Stanley Cup. Personally, I think the more hockey that anyone watches, the more you realize there are a lot of different ways to win. Golitzen has even said as much that when he came up as a rookie coach in Dallas, he kind of had one way he thought was best to play. And since then he's seen, boy, you can win a lot of different ways. And there's no one perfect best system. Yes, there are some trends and everything in the league that we see. But overall, Golitzen has been very open about how you have to kind of adapt to the situation you have, the players you have, and you need a system that fits them well. And you need to adapt, on a regular basis too. I mean, he was the power play coach in Edmonton, right? And we've all seen for 2 years now how Edmonton's power plays has really been able to do things against Dallas when Dallas's penalty kill has been stronger in other playoff series against other teams. So yeah, part of that's, elite talent, but a big part of that too, I think, is that Golitzen is very vocally much more about that collaboration, as you mentioned. That's just kind of who he is. And, again, the results will kind of be how he's ultimately judged, I think, but going into camp, I think it's very fair to say that he comes across a little bit more collaborative, whereas DeBoer was a little bit more, again, as he earned with all the success in his career, and you can't argue with his track record. But DeBoer is a little bit more, this is how things are going to be done under me. And, Stars fans will remember a certain head coach that won him a Stanley Cup with a pretty similar style. So it's not always a bad thing, but I think it was time for a change in Jim Nill's eyes. So we'll see how that change works out.
You mentioned DeBoer, and I did want to ask you about this just before we got into this segment, but I forgot. But you obviously, I think, probably heard the article that came out, or at least read it, about some of his final thoughts. So I'm curious your thought on this, because I did a segment on it. I was under the impression just even a couple months ago that Nill made the decision to fire DeBoer based off sort of what he said in that post-game press conference after Game 5. But now that we're a couple months away, and the more it just kind of rattles around in my brain, I have a feeling now, especially after the really, really tough end of the regular season, losing 7 straight, that Nill had made it up that he's either going to move on from DeBoer unless he gets to a Stanley Cup final. Whether they win it or not, who knows? But I feel like if they got shut down the Western Conference final again or earlier, he was going to be fired no matter what the comments. Just a bar from that. So I'm curious your impression on that. Maybe if you took anything away differently from reading that article and some of his final words.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? DeBoer, I've heard that there were some other, I didn't personally, but I've heard that there were some other local media, Dallas media folks who had reached out to DeBoer about, after he had been fired and everything like that, and he hadn't responded to him. So the fact that he's choosing this particular time now to go to a national reporter with NHL.com, Mike Zeisberger, who I have all the respect in the world for, by the way, but to go to this particular reporter and kind of put this piece out now, I think you can kind of connect the dots about why he might be doing that. We've seen before when a coach hasn't been around for a little bit and then suddenly their name starts coming up, or maybe a player has missed a season or two with injury and suddenly, a story pops up about them. Boy, this player would really be a big ad for a team. And usually that's because there's some relationship, and trust between whoever writes that story and the one who's kind of hoping that story will be written. So for my money, as far as when Jim Nill decided, I can tell you what he said when we asked him about it. Jim Nill said DeBoer's comments about Ottinger kind of doubling down. And Nill has said very clearly, and I believe him, that he didn't have a problem with him pulling Ottinger in that situation. You go down 2-0 early in a do-or-die game. You make the choice. We got to spark something on the bench. That's totally the coach's prerogative. And I really believe Nill was okay with that. But how it was done, I also think we can kind of see it wasn't exactly a well thought out, measured thing. DeBoer even told me, I had about a 10-minute interview with him in April this past year, just as the playoff run was getting started, and kind of asked him about, as a coach, how do you want players to remember their time with you, and what's your secret to kind of weathering the ups and downs of a season? This is again right after that 7-game losing streak you mentioned, which by the way followed a 7-game winning streak right before that. So really in their last 14 games of the season, they were 500. So I don't know what the big deal was. No, but that losing streak certainly I think was it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, even after the 2 series wins. And I kind of believe that when Jim Nill pulled back and had some time to look at the whole season, he looked at a couple things. That losing streak you mentioned, DeBoer's comments, which Jim Nill said were part of the decision, but were not the main reason. And you can, take that or leave it, but that's what he said. The other factor I think that's really important to look at is DeBoer got the team fined $100,000 right after Christmas for a practice that was held. From all the looking into it and everything that I did at the time and have done since, it seems pretty clear that was just kind of a DeBoer decided this was going to happen and that some players needed to skate on this day and violate the collective bargaining agreement. And he to DeBoer's, I guess, credit, he accepted afterwards and said, I guess if I broke the rules, whatever, I broke the rules, that's fine. Okay, we'll move on. And he answered some questions about it and moved on. But I think when you put all those pieces together, you put in his comments about Ottinger, and you put together that final piece of him kind of frankly losing composure on the bench. Yeah. He even said in that piece you mentioned on NHL.com, DeBoer said there was a sense of defeatism on the bench. Yeah. And so I felt like I had to do something. And in my mind, okay, maybe that excuses making the goalie pull. You feel like the mood in the bench is down. But I think a head coach is also accountable for that mood getting there in the first place. So why now are you doing something? Maybe you have to wear that defeatism a little bit too. And it seems pretty clear in the moment right after that DeBoer was pointing fingers a little bit more than owning that responsibility. And it's all well and good to be apologetic now, but the fact that it's not the first time we've seen DeBoer in the playoffs lose composure and a goalie to be the one who ends up kind of paying the price for it. This is the third time now, actually, with Leonard in 22 and then Fleury in 2020. So I think at a certain point, that track record, especially if you're Jim Nill, you pull back and look at those moments and you say, boy, if we have another bout of adversity in year 4, we might be skipping right to this kind of defeatism moment. So we better make this change before we risk that.
Yeah, and I imagine there's some panic in his mind too, stating that there was defeatism. That means he even felt like, oh man, I may have lost this group. And then sometimes when you're panicking and you're desperate, you make some decisions that are a bit hasty. I also said I thought it was a huge mistake when he did his postseason presser. He still had to talk to Andre at that point, and that was something like, it's just not good. Of course, it all transpired, but it's time to look now into the future. All right, enough of the past. So I'll sort of give you dealer's choice on this one. Maybe just your big storyline in your mind, what maybe you're just looking forward to for training camp this preseason, heading into the 25-26 season.
Yeah, last year there was a little bit of a question about the 13th forward. Oscar Beck ended up winning that spot. This year, I think the roster is a little clearer. It looks like Nathan Bastian will be that 13th forward, or Oscar Beck again. You can argue who's going to be in the starting lineup, but I think we can say they probably have their 13 forwards, assuming everyone's healthy. Which again, we saw last training camp wasn't the case last year with a couple of people getting hurt. So we'll see, but I don't think that's as big of a storyline in terms of roster spots. It's more placement in the lineup. I think the big questions are left wing. Mikael Granlund and Mason Marchment were kind of the 2 top left wings on this team in the playoffs, and they're both gone now. So yes, Jason Robertson is healthy now. We talked to him on last week at the Stars, one of the Stars golf fundraisers that they do, and he said he's all healthy, everything feels great, he's ready to go for the season. So that's a positive sign for Stars fans. And aside from him, who's going to have that second spot? Where, especially if you see Duchesne and Seguin reunited, I think that's been consistently kind of the question. So in my mind, that's going to be a really interesting thing. Maybe less so about who actually winds up there in opening night, and more so about what Gulutzan tries. Because not only might he try a Sam Steele or who knows, Maverick Borkin is offering. I don't know. You can throw names out there and say who's going to scale up. Jamie Benn. I don't know. But whom he's willing to try and whom he might move around. We might even see a center play in some wing. We might see Wyatt Johnston in a different spot. all as a result of trying to kind of rejigger this roster. So I think where people are playing is going to be a much more interesting storyline than who's going to make the roster.
Okay, so I want to ask you this then. Maybe I'm cuckoo, and you got to tell me if I am. But looking at Beck, I struggle to find a role for him now, because I feel like now it's Radek Faksa, because he was sort of the Radek Faksa of the Stars last year. So if I just had to ask you, like, who plays more games at the end of the day? If you had to pick Bastian or Beck, who would you go with? Because I think it's going to be Bastian, because I think it's been kind of obvious that they want a little more physicality. They want some just beefier bottom six. So I'm curious, what would you say to that with Beck and Bastian, and sort of where Beck's role is now with the Stars? And it seems like Radek Faksa is going to take over.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's kind of how it looks on paper. That Beck. That's what we were talking about last year. Wow, they lost Radek Faksa, but they kind of got a Radek Faksa starter kit here. So this should be pretty good news for him. As the season went on last year, and again, it was Pete DeBoer's system, so we could see something different. Beck turned into a left wing. He really didn't play center very much at all after starting there, and that was kind of a virtue of his early on, especially with Maverick Bork suffering a groin injury in training camp and other. He was also potentially going to be a center, and then things changed as the year went on. So we'll see if Steele moves up and plays in the left wing somewhere. That does open up a center spot, and Bastian doesn't play center. So if they think they need, Faksa and Beck to play center, then I guess he's got a spot. But yeah, to me, Gulutzan has been very clear about, wanting some more physical play. And I think Bastian, to me, reminds me a little bit of signings like Martin Hansel under Ken Hitchcock, where you get a new coach and then you get a new player that looks kind of like a prototypical, this player makes sense for this system after the fact. So I do wonder if Bastian if Gulutzan kind of said, that's exactly the sort of player I want to drive that sort of play in the bottom six. So unless Beck can show more of a physical element to his play than we've seen, again, whatever that physicality looks like, not chasing guys, but just on that forecheck, he hasn't been that sort of player as much, even though he's got size. He's a big guy. So maybe Beck changes his game and he fits into that system. But if not, then I think that is something to watch, that Bastian could end up being, even as a right wing, whereas Beck is a left shot. When you're talking about that final forward spot, that very well could end up being what it comes down to. I think that's something to watch.
Yeah, and to be fair, like Blackwell looked really, really darn good at the end of the year. He scored some big goals. I think he deserves some more chances too. So as you said, it seems like the roster's there. It's now just sort of the pieces and where they play. So appreciate your thoughts on some of the questions I had. Now, the nitty gritty, the real futuristic stuff. Harley and Robo, I have to ask you about that. What are their futures with the Dallas Stars? We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes it so exciting to watch football on Sundays and football on Saturdays, college football, NFL. And it's not just football, ladies and gentlemen. You have the NHL season about to start up. You have postseason baseball. You have soccer. You name it, FanDuel has it. It's so much fun. You can bet on your favorite player with player props. You can build a same-game parlay or even jump in the live action as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it makes it so much more exciting to watch games on Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app. You can visit FanDuel.com. $5, bet your first $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. So go to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Well, we've been talking about it all summer, Robert. We're going to trade Jason Robertson. What kind of packages can you get for Jason Robertson? We'll get to Harley in a bit too, but where do you sort of stand on Robertson? What have you heard maybe from Nill? I know he was asked this, I believe, at the sort of the postseason presser, and he just goes, well, I like the player. We'd like to keep him, but we all know the cap situation, and that can be really, really tough to do. But what would be sort of your prediction with Robo coming into to this season, and how do you see it shaping up? And maybe do you think he does get something done with Dallas, whether it's short-term or long-term at the end of the day?
Yeah, the latest on that is actually my pal Sean Shapiro just wrote something about this. He had a chance to talk to Jim Nill over the weekend, and Jim Nill said basically, yes, I was getting calls on Jason Robertson. I was also getting calls on Wyatt Johnston because at the time in the summer when some of these stories were coming out about, oh, the Stars are shopping Robertson or looking to see what they can get, they were in a cap crunch. They were over the cap. They hadn't traded Marchment. They hadn't traded Dumba yet. So other teams were, doing, as so often happens, they see the Stars were, drowning in cap trouble. And so instead of throwing them life preserver, other GMs are tossing them anchors, right? Hey, yeah, we'd love to fix your cap problem. Just toss us one of those, Wyatt Johnsons or Jason Robertsons, and you'll be cap compliant in no time. Here's the thing. Thomas Harley, let's mention him first. Thomas Harley has many more years of team control, I think till like 2029 or something like that. So yes, he only has one more year in his current deal, and he is going to get paid after that deal, whatever it is. But he has more years of team control. So if the Stars really had to, they could do qualifying offers or one more bridge deal or something like that. I don't think Thomas Harley's going anywhere. We saw last year how important he is, especially if someone like Miro goes down. And Team Canada has seen themselves how valuable Harley is just in a vacuum. He's a top defenseman in this league. So I think fans don't need to worry too much about Thomas Harley. He's going to be on this team unless something crazy happens or there's some weird, unanticipated sort of drama that we heretofore have not seen. I don't think Thomas Harley's one to worry about too much. The only thing to worry about is how big that cap hit's going to be next year, because it's going to be big. But with a player like Harley, I think he's indispensable. Robertson has 1 year of team control left after his final year of his current contract ends. He'll be a free agent in the summer of 2027. Thus, the Stars have some urgency. I think they would have loved to sign him long-term this year for two reasons. Number one, because they would have signed him before Kaprizov or McDavid signed their new deals, and those will probably bump the market up. Apparently, Kaprizov hasn't even taken $16 million, so he's certainly looking to bump the market up. And so if you're Jason Robertson, of course it makes sense that you're not going to sign. And that's what he said. I asked him about this last week, and Robertson said, yeah, there's no rush. The phrase he used was, that's the beauty of the deal we worked out. The Stars get 1 more year of team control after this. It doesn't walk him right to free agency. And the beauty of the deal is that from Robertson's side, it gives him 1 more year. He didn't say this explicitly, but I kind of read between the lines. I think it's fair to say it gives Robertson 1 more year to kind of assess the landscape and see, okay, what's the most fair deal if I'm really going to sign long-term? So I think there's a chance that if Robertson's camp looks at the landscape, as the year goes on or a year from now, again, maybe Jim Nill signs him tomorrow. I don't know. That's all possible. Yeah. I'm sure he would love to. And maybe the Stars eventually decide, you know what, maybe we offer him $12 million and he takes that now because that security is worth it. What if Robertson gets hurt again or has another down year, another down playoff year? There's things that could decrease Robertson's value, even though everyone I think would agree he's a very good player in this league. There's a point at which a team would say you're not worth that much money, right? So if Robertson's camp is going to demand that much, then maybe there's a point next summer where the Stars have to trade him rather than risk, losing him for nothing like the Leafs did with Mitch Marner. But for now, I think the Stars would like to sign him. And then next summer, they can either sign him for one final qualifying offer and then look to deal him, or they can decide if they need to really pony up and sign him to kind of a Kaprizov light type deal.
Yeah, well, if you're Robo, man, all you gotta do is look down the street at the Star, and the longer you wait, you can usually cash in, baby.
There's some local precedent, isn't there?
You can usually cash in, but that's good. So we can cool the jets on Harley a bit. That makes me feel a little bit better. That's we should be good with Thomas Harley and such. But I appreciate your insights there. I know that's on a topic of a lot of people's mind, especially with you talk about some trades with Parsons recently, and of course Luka Doncic. It's been tough in the Metroplex a bit, but one more question and we'll let you out here. Really appreciate you coming on. It's been a lot of fun. Just what are you most excited about with this Dallas Stars team this year? Just what has you giddy about going in this year? I've said I'm a little bit more excited just because, it feels like the last couple of years under DeBoer, it's like we kind of knew the Stars were good. We knew they were going to get in. It was like, okay, the playoffs are the answer, but this, Stars could go 3-7 to start the year, and it could be really great. It could be really bad. So I'm just really, really anxious to see what happens. So just what are you most excited about in general with this Stars team?
I think I'm most excited about, a little selfishly, to see what the atmosphere is around this team. Glenn Golitzen has known Jamie Benn since his AHL days. He's known him a long time. He's known a lot of people in the organization a long time. I mean, Jim Nill's the one that fired him, as they joked about. And then you bring up Neil Graham, who's known a lot of these players. Neil Graham coached Miro Heiskanen at the Traverse City Prospect Tournament way back when, 8 years ago, I guess it would have been. You're bringing 2 coaches in who have long relationships with a lot of these people. And again, everyone agrees that you got to win, right? It's all fun. Yeah. It's all nice for everyone to have the warm and fuzzies, but you got to win. But for me, you don't have this, okay, we brought in this very well-known, respected veteran coach and kind of his coaching staff, more or less, to come in and do their thing. They got to the 3rd round. The Stars did really, really well. Some players had career years. I don't know that Robertson's ever going to have a year like he did 3 years ago. But now you have very known quantities, long-standing relationships. I think whatever Jamie Benn has left to give at this point in his career, Glenn Golitzen is the one to get it out of him. I really believe that. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see whether this is, whether Ben has 5 years left, 2 years, or 1 or whatever. I'm really looking forward to seeing those long-standing relationships come to the forefront of a team that has all the pressure in the world on them right now.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Robert. Please plug your content. Let people know where they can find you if they haven't. But I'm sure they've heard of you and have read your great stuff. But please plug yourself.
Yeah, thanks. You can find a lot of my writing at starsthoughts.com. That's my Substack. You don't have to subscribe to read it. You can be a free subscriber or you can be a paid supporter. They're the ones who really helped me do the full-time coverage that I did last year and I'm doing this year. But in any capacity, even if you're just reading it or sharing it or forwarding it to someone, I really appreciate that. It helps me, and feel free to hop on in there and join the comments and stuff too. I really love got to meet some readers at the Prospect Tournament. It's always really fun to just enjoy chatting with other hockey fans. It's the best part of it. You can also find my work every now and then at D Magazine, a great group of people Mike Palucci put together there. And then, on great podcasts like Locked On Stars and of course on Twitter and Blue Sky. So, yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much once again. Appreciate you hopping on for the first time. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing this some more down the road. So have a great day, and appreciate you once again.
You bet, Joey. Thanks.
Alrighty, that'll do it here on Locked On Stars on a Wednesday. Be sure to like, comment, hit the subscribe button as well. Never miss an episode. And as always, Stars fans, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. So long.